Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
My dear friend Daryl Dickinson back in Ohio sent me this note, and it regards a lady in Chicago. And the lady writes, she was walking through Chicago and she saw that there was a small Muslim bookstore. She was wondering what exactly was in the Muslim bookstore, so she went in. As she was wandering around taking a look, the clerk asked if he could be of help to the lady. And she imagined that she didn't look like his normal clientele, so she asked, do you have a copy of Donald Trump's book on U.S. immigration policy regarding terrorists, Muslims, and illegal Mexicans? The clerk said, drop dead and get out and stay out. And the lady said, yes, that's the one. Do you have it in paperback? Good morning, everybody. Here comes Kate Smith, and God bless America, followed by a patriot with our Pledge of Allegiance. You gotta laugh, please. Oh, thank you very much, and there you go. Zeb at the Ranch, I'm Zeb Bell, and brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, and, of course, some of our great advertisers. Western Way Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service today. Call 734-6969. And Valleywide Home and Ranch, 910 South Oneida in Rupert. Everything for the farm, the home, and the ranch at Valleywide in Rupert. And a good morning. Do we have a Pledge of Allegiance person?
We do.
All right, go right ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dal, how you feeling this morning?
Just so.
Okay, well, God bless you and your lovely wife, and please know that our thoughts and prayers are with you, okay?
Thank you.
All right, my friend. Thank you very, very much. Wonderful people right there, and they had kind of a little accident, and they're healing up slow but sure, and God bless them very, very much. It's time for the weather. No, it's not. I got to tell you quickly, Ted's Diesel Electric is moving to 635 21st Street in Heyburn, right there on Alfresco Road, owned by Doug Martin, and he can rebuild starters, alternators, generators, and also sell you brand new. Ted's Diesel Electric, moving to 635 21st Street in Heyburn. Excuse me, little hay fever here this morning, I apologize. Don't forget, too, it's time now for our weather forecast. Cheney Flooring and Home Design. Today is Tile Tuesday. 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley, and look for the blue door. Everything, whatever you need to make your house a home. All the home decor items, kitchen construction, carpet and flooring, and I believe we're going to be talking to Kyle on Thursday, as a matter of fact. And newly refurbished furniture, it's all there at Cheney Flooring and Home Design in Burley. And right now, here is the weather.
Here's a look at your weather as we do move through the week. Looks like mostly sunny skies, but we do have that air quality advisory still in effect due to all of the smoke in the area and pretty much statewide. So if you have some upper respiratory issues, please take note of that. Otherwise, looking at a high of 94 for today. Tonight, low of 62. Tomorrow, clouds are going to be rolling in, bringing along with it rain showers and possible thunderstorms, about a 60% chance. High of 84 with an overnight low of 54. Winds are going to be picking up a little bit tomorrow as well. For Thursday, things calming down. Sun's going to be shining again. High of 87 with an overnight low of 58. And as we move on into the weekend, looks like partly to mostly sunny skies. Highs are going to remain in the mid-80s. That's your weather forecast for Zebit the Ranch.
Very good weather forecast, Gina. Thank you. Brought to everybody by Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Thank you very much. Great folks. Don't forget, on Thursdays, the Burley Livestock Sale Yard, 1100 Occidental Avenue in Burley. Merv May, Cade Rogge, and Lance Udy. The sale that works for you. 10:30 starting time on Thursday at 1100 Occidental Avenue in Burley. And the number to call for consignments or sale information, 678-9411. That number again, 678-9411. Burley Livestock Sale Yard with the sale on Thursday starting at 10:30. Want to wish a very happy anniversary today to two people that they're just dear, dear friends. And if you see them, be sure and wish them a happy anniversary. In Kimberly, Gerald and Wanda Sievers. I've known these folks for a long time, 4 decades, and they are wonderful, wonderful people celebrating their anniversary today. So Gerald and Wanda Sievers, God bless you and have a great day. By the way, too, if you have clothes that are all rumply-crumply and you need to have them cleaned and looking good and you're going to a party, you're going to a wedding, whatever you're going to go to, take your clothing into Darrow's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. They are wizards at making everything just look perfect. Man alive, you'll go down there, and I've said this before, you go down and pick up your clothes and you go, holy smokes, I didn't know I had this new shirt or this new pair of pants. Well, let me tell you something. That's how they'll come back to you, looking brand spanking new. Darrow's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. The best. Oh, and by the way, we're very thankful about SafeLink Internet. Idaho's #1 choice for wireless internet. And the number to call to get on the program, 677-8000. 677-8000. SafeLink Internet. No contracts, no credit checks, unlimited data. You will appreciate these folks. They are good. And the service is excellent. At SafeLink Internet, 677-8000. You be sure and give them a call today. All right, it's your turn. Calls are welcome. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Did you hear that the president of Iran blatantly just made statements and in front of the camera, into a microphone, didn't care if we, the United States, heard it, didn't care if Israel heard it, didn't care if the world heard it. And he said that Iran will buy or sell weapons anywhere they choose. Now, what good is an agreement with this kind of a just absolutely horrendous killer machine mentality of Iran? What good is an agreement going to do? They're going to sell, their words, they're going to sell or buy weapons anywhere or to anybody they choose. And here we are, trying to be tied down to an Obama agreement, which is nothing more than just something for his legacy. What kind of a mess are we getting into? And I certainly hope and pray that the Democrats on the left side of the aisle have any common sense whatsoever. They will join with the Republicans and throw this agreement out. It's absolutely worthless. Your calls, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I've read through I should say skimmed through major portions of this agreement, and I still can't find anything that benefits us or our ally Israel. Really, everything is in their favor. Whatever they want, they're going to get. They're going to get all their money back to the tune of billions, 160 billion plus, with a B, by the way. And they're not going to be held accountable for anything. And the idiocy of this deal, it was talked about last week, they're going to inspect themselves. Good heavens, help us. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I want to say thank you to Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. All your electrical and heating needs, everything, along with all your filters for your air conditioner to keep you cool. And by the way, coming up on September 10th will be Patriots Day and the kickoff to Hats Off to Farmers. We're going to be over there for a remote broadcast on that day, again on September 10th. And they're going to have free soft drinks and popcorn and a lot of caps from Ramsey's and everything. Going to be fun at Ramsey Heating and Electric, 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Also want to acknowledge, come on, give me a call quickly while I have another commercial to do. Our friends over at Valley Wine Home and Ranch. The bugs, the flies, the wasps, they're all over the place. And get that bug spray, fly spray, and wasp spray. It's all there at Valley Wine Home and Ranch. And if you got to do some cleaning, they've got all the little, like the pooper scoopers on wagons that you can tow around and get all the doggy-doo off the lawn and everything else. They've got it all for you over there, including all your fishing supplies if you want to go hunting and fishing. They've got the licenses over there too at Valley Wide Home and Ranch, 910 South Oneida in Rupert. You stop over and see those good folks today. All right, your turn. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. The stock market down yesterday at the opening, 1,000 points at the beginning, and then it started a little bit of a late rally, a little bit of a surge, and hopefully today, some of the experts that I've listened to on television and some of the things I've read in the paper, we may gain about a 500-point rally today, but what are your thoughts? How many of you out there are really concerned about your 401k? How many out there have stocks in the stock market? And how many of you that are around my age bracket are sitting there going, holy buckets, in the last couple of days, look at the money that we've lost. Is it going to come back? I don't know. Is it going to come back strong enough to replenish what you've lost? I haven't got a clue. Is it smart to sell right now and just kind of lick your wounds and go on? I have a tendency to think maybe that might be the way to go, but I'm not advocating that, and I'm certainly not saying I'm going to do it. I don't know. I don't think there's anybody right now. And if somebody out there in Radio Land has a crystal ball, you let me know. I don't know what to do with this very, very inflammable stock market right now. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb.
Yes, sir.
I hope you don't have your life savings in there.
Well, I'm going to be very honest with you. Deanna and I diversified into about 5 different areas, none of which I'm going to discuss on the air because it's only my business, not anybody else's. But I will say that we do have substantial savings in the stock market, and I'm sweating profusely.
I will keep you in my prayers. But, and along with everyone else, because this is just wrong. You go to a broker who tells you what a good deal it is and everything, and then, but they don't have a crystal ball, so they don't know.
No, and I'm not advocating everybody to jump out of the stock market. I'm not advocating everybody to just run, because I still think and I maintain that a stock market is a good, healthy stock market in this country is very, very good for the economy. However, it's being dictated and controlled right now by a foreign source, and that happens to be China, with all the devaluation of their currency, etc., and we, the United States consumers, are paying for it.
You know, somewhere, I think it was yesterday, I heard, I didn't read it, I heard it somewhere, that someone was proposing that the United States Congress and Senate read that agreement with Iran thoroughly, and when they get done reading it, they testify that they have read it completely and sign their name to it.
I don't see how anybody with any kind of appreciation for their constituency can understand this Iranian deal and look people in the eye and say it's good for America. I honestly do not understand how that can happen.
Well, let's go back to the Obamacare. Even now, how many senators or representatives have read that completely? Even Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah.
I don't even think she even looked at it. She just said you should do it.
Well, Nancy Pelosi is a rare case of close your eyes, sign the paper, and then blatantly go forward advocating what you sign, and you have no idea what's in there. She's done that through her political career.
Well, she's got to go, but she never will, because the people that she represents are as crazy as she is.
Well, don't say never. Don't ever say never, because whether it's old age or whether it's being voted out, she'll not be there for eternity. I got to run and do a commercial, Keith. God bless you for your call. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, sir. Denny's Restaurant, 611 Overland in Burley, the home of Zeb's Lunch Bunch. And we had a great lunch bunch last week. Really good. And the food was phenomenal. Deanne had a new kind of a different salad. Woo! I ended up sampling it quite a few times. Wow, was it good. 611 Overland in Burley, Thomas and Terry, the whole crew, very, very nice people. Always there to serve you. And they've got a brand new location, too, at 291 Pole Line Road in Twin Falls. The very best of breakfast, lunch, and dinner at Denny's Restaurant in Burley. You stop in and see them today. Okay? Oh, and by the way, the Twin Falls County Fair and Magic Valley Stampede Rodeo is coming up September 2nd through the 7th. Wow, are they going to have a lot of fun. Wow, are they going to have a lot of great entertainment, like Jared Neiman in concert on Sunday, September 6th at 7:30 p.m. They've got something for everybody, including a great big Magic Valley Stampede PRCA Rodeo Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Don't you miss it at the Twin Falls County Fairgrounds with the theme this year, Country Flair at the Fair. The Twin Falls County Fair and Rodeo, and that's 99th annual, September 2nd through the 7th. Don't you miss it. All right, give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Absolutely a tragedy. And I do not know that much about Indy race cars. No, I've never got behind the wheel of one of those things. I have raced stock cars, but I don't know that much about open cockpit Indy cars. Very, very dangerous. I have often sat there and watched the Indy 500 and other races. When you see the open cockpit and the head and just the top of the shoulders of these drivers sticking out, and I've said to my wife many, many times, wow, what happens? What is a protection device other than the helmet if they flip over and they skid on their top? What happens? Well, very unfortunately, an accident at Pocono Raceway in Pennsylvania claimed the life of driver Justin Wilson. It was a terrible, terrible crash. A great big piece of debris from another car went flying through the air and hit him in the head, the helmet, and he was in a coma and then passed away. And I just don't understand. Somebody out there that understands racing far better than me, especially the open-wheel Indy cars, somebody call me and tell me why there can't be some kind of a devising of a shield or some kind of a protective basket or some kind of a hood, something that couldn't go over the top of their heads. They're just out there at 200 plus miles an hour. And very unfortunately, Justin Wilson passing away after being hit in the head by a piece of debris. Calls are welcome. Come on, give me a jingle. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Give me a jingle on the landline. We would love to hear from you. Oh, by the way, too, J&W Horseshoeing. Hello, Josh Mays. Yep, probably up on the mountain this morning. J&W Horseshoeing, Josh and Wiley, 432-2260 or 410-1837. Corrective shoeing from draft horses all the way to ponies. And till the end of this month of August, $20 trim job on your horses. $20! You can save a lot of money. Better get a hold of him today. J&W Horseshoeing, 432-2260 or 410-1837. Your turn. Give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. The EPA wants to take control of your lawnmowers. I am not kidding you. In some of the regulations that have been coming out, they want to require, this is right from the American Liberty Publishers, and then there's an advertisement going on television right now about the EPA, and they're absolutely stupid and frivolous and taking away our freedom regulations to where they want to control what's on your lawnmower as far as requiring catalytic converters, and also they want to tell you what time of the day that you can mow your lawn. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but I am not going to adhere to anything as far as a regulation about when I can mow my lawn. They're saying, well, at certain times of the day, you're contributing to so much air pollution. From my lawnmower, are you kidding me? This is absolutely ridiculous. I will mow my lawn whenever I want to mow my lawn. If I want to mow it at midnight, I will. That'd be a little tough. Or I will mow it any other time, and I will not be regulated by the EPA. They claim that they're going to be hiring a lot more people to go around and enforce and write tickets out. Good heavens. Get a ticket for mowing your lawn. This is America. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Come on, give me a call. Let's get things rolling here this morning. While I'm waiting for your call that I hope is coming in, don't forget Mount Harrison Audiology with the lovely doctor of audiology, Christine Pickup. Hearing loss and dementia are linked. Did you know that? Hearing loss becomes a great burden on the brain as you have to expend more time and energy to decipher what others are saying to you. Treating hearing loss reduces the strain and makes hearing more natural. You get a hold of Mount Harrison Audiology today for a hearing screening. Call 312-0957. That number again, 312-0957, Mount Harrison Audiology. Right across the street from the Minidoka Hospital Emergency Room, 312-0957. My goodness, come on, get on the landline, give me a call. Love to hear from you, and we'll talk about any subject you want to talk. There is a witch hunt, and I want to see if you agree with this. There is a witch hunt to discredit, disorganize, and demean Donald Trump's campaign. I watched the news the last couple of days. I've taken notes on the news from various stations, whether it's ABC, CNN, MSNBC, or even Fox News. And I honestly and firmly agree that there is a very concentrated effort that the networks, all of them, to some degree, are going after Donald Trump, and they're trying to get him discredited and possibly even out of the race. Now, last night, Buffoon O'Reilly, and what is that beeping sound, Deanne? Do you have any idea what that is? Somebody sounds like they're backing up here in the studio. What is that noise? Buffoon O'Reilly last night railed against Trump's stand on illegals should be deported. Let me ask you, is Trump wrong? Should people that have come to this country illegally, they snuck in under the cloak of darkness, snuck across our borders, snuck into a land that has laws, supposedly, and they're illegal aliens, and they had children here in this country, which are anchor babies, and so it anchored the family here to the United States. And Trump basically said, no, they should be deported and come in the legal way. They should file for the legal papers, all the legalness that needs to go through, and channel their efforts into becoming legalized citizen. And other than that, they are illegal and should be deported. Now, I know it sounds harsh to many people, but really this is a nation of laws, and they're being broken. They came here illegally. What other country would let these folks or any group of people or anyone come into the country, take up residency, and just say, nope, I'm staying here, you can't move me out? Tell me another country. Give me a call and tell me if you agree or disagree with Trump's harshness, if you will, on immigration. Jeb Bush came out and issued a statement that he denounced Donald Trump, which doesn't surprise me at all. But basically, it was kind of kissing up to Mexico. Oh, we won't do anything to hurt your feelings. We're sorry. Which one would you prefer? Donald Trump's immigration plan or the we're sorry Jeb Bush's immigration plan? Call me and let me know. I'm going to take a little survey on that this morning. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. While I'm waiting for our first survey to be answered, don't forget Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. Number to call to help you get back to being you, 678-1191. 678-1191. All the sports medicine, all the exercises, hydrotherapy, pool, etc., all with physical therapists that really know their stuff. Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, 678-1191. You know, I'm really surprised that we haven't had a call with people with opinions on whether they favor the Bush approach of, oh, no, we don't want to make you mad. Oh, no, we won't do anything. Oh, golly, no wall. Good heavens, we can't do that. We don't want to hurt one of our neighbors, or Trump's plan. People are here illegally. Mexico has taken advantage of us financially. We've got Ford, we've got Nabisco going down there to build plants. My goodness, that's business that should be kept here in the United States. What are your thoughts on this? Give me a jingle, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I personally think his immigration plan is pretty good. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Morning. I am definitely for Trump.
Why?
Why? He's the only one with a brain on his head. I mean, on his shoulders.
You know, Helen, the man can be criticized. He's rough around the edges. He may not be Mr. Smooth or Mr. Suave or anything else. But, you know, he's bringing out points of interest that absolutely should have been brought out a long time ago.
The points of interest that he's bringing out should never have gone down the drain.
I agree. I'm going to put you down as a Trump supporter, okay?
Amen. Put me down 3 times.
God bless you, Ellen. Thanks.
Put him down.
All right. Appreciate it. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Sounds to me like she's planning on voting 3 times.
Well, why shouldn't she? I mean, there's a lot of people that do that.
Yeah, right. I think that I remember if somebody goes into Mexico and doesn't have lots of documentation, or even into Canada, you don't get a free ride.
Well, now Mexico...
Maybe you do. turn around and get your tail back to your country.
Yeah, and look at what Mexico issued last week when they said, attention, all United States tourists, if you don't have the proper papers and or a passport, don't bother coming into our country because we won't let you in. And I listened to that, Chris, and I thought, this is the most ridiculous statement I've ever heard in my life, because at the same time they're issuing this idiocy, thousands of people are crossing the border from their country into ours.
I think they're hand-picking them and sending them up here. Now, and I love the Mexican people, and the ones that are willing to work hard and want to change their lifestyle, I love them even better. But I think there is something about the border rules.
I agree.
Everybody abides by them.
Okay, so what would you do? Quickly, I got other calls waiting. Are you in favor of Trump's support or not?
To stop people at the border, just like they stop people at their border.
All right.
And I think once they get 10 miles in, then they're in the network.
All right, but you're supporting Trump's immigration plan.
Yeah.
All right.
I really like him.
I got you down. Thank you, my dear.
Mm-hmm.
God bless. Thank you. Caller, go ahead. You're on the air.
Zeb, are you asking me if I support the status quo going along with everything Obama wants to do, like our Senate and our House?
No, that's not what I said, Jerry. Don't cloud the issue.
You're asking me if I think we need to change things and enforce our laws and obey our rules. I'm all for enforcing our laws and obeying the rules that are already established and not being observed or followed at all.
They're being made a mockery of, Jerry.
Well, that is an absolute fact. It's nothing but a lousy joke. Our legal system, from the judges up, are just disgracing our law system. They don't observe them, they don't obey them, they don't care about them.
Jerry, whoa.
It's ridiculous.
Jerry, just a minute, let me ask you a question.
And I'm all for another president that will stand up and have backbone and defend our country.
Why is it, Jerry, that a man that comes out and says he wants the obeying of the United States Constitution and the laws that have been set for the protection of this country, he is villainized and demonized, and the others that want open borders and support all this chaos, they're supposedly the good guys. This is nuts.
Yes, it is, and I can't go along with it in any way, shape, or form.
All right, I got you down, Jerry. Thank you very much.
You keep me down.
All right.
Great day.
All right, thank you, my friend. What about it? Are you in favor of Trump's immigration plan? And I've got it here in its entirety. I've got a copy of it right here in front of me. And or do you think that, oh, no, we should just try to get along? We should say to Mexico, oh, it's okay. You just do as you want like you have been. What are your thoughts? Get tough? Obey the laws? Obey the Constitution? Or just let anything go? Your thoughts. Give me a jingle. So far, everybody's been in favor of Trump's plan, and I'd like to hear what your thoughts are. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. While I'm waiting for your call and your thoughts on Trump and or Bush and the rest of the no backbone, supposedly GOP members, I'd like to tell you a little bit about a place that has all the equipment you need to get the job done right, and that's Berry Equipment and Rental. 3 locations serving you: Addison Avenue West in Twin Falls, South Lincoln in Jerome, and 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. My, oh my, oh my, they've got the Doosan loaders. This is the big dude that can get all the job done for you. And I'll guarantee you go in there and take a look at them, and if you need a loader for your dairy, your business, your excavation business, whatever, this is the one. And they've got special deals waiting to show you at Berry Equipment and Rental. As I said, 3 locations: Addison Avenue West, Twin Falls, South Lincoln and Jerome, and 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. The equipment to get the job done right at Berry Equipment and Rental. All right, let's get some more calls in here. 436-2244. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
You know, our country has been seriously damaged, and I don't think it'll ever be completely what it used to be. And it's going to take draconian measures to get this thing back to where it'll be halfway livable.
Let me ask you a question right there on your choice of words. Why did you say draconian?
Well, it's got, I totally agree with Donald Trump.
Well, yeah, but it's not draconian when you really basically look at the laws of this country, look at why they were passed to protect us, the U.S. citizens, look at our Constitution. There's nothing draconian about it. It's just called following the rule of law, and that's what's not being done.
Well, that's not, you're right, it's not being done. Nothing is happening there from Washington. So what other kind of measures can you possibly take before this country is totally destroyed? And we're headed that
I agree.
way.
I agree totally.
Rapidly.
I agree totally that if we don't get this thing in hand and start going back to the rule of law for us, the United States of America, we are doomed. Tony, always good to hear from you. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
God bless. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. How are you?
I am fantabulous. What is your thought this morning? Pardon?
Hey, I think we need to go back to more of the John Wayne attitude. Kick some behind and let's stop being so politically correct and worrying if we're hurting somebody's feelings, and stop giving out participation trophies all the time and stick to the rules on what needs to be done. And I think Trump can do that because he says it how it is.
You know, while I get you on the phone right here, let me ask you this, and you brought up a really interesting point about the participation trophies and everything. I really, in the last election, had high hopes that maybe the Republicans would show some of that John Wayne attitude, show some of that swagger, show that they were ready to stick their chin out and take one on the chin if necessary. But you know what? In layman's terminology, they've not only let me down, they've dropped the ball, and they've looked like a bunch of cowards.
That's right. We have a whole generation of people that we've just given participation trophies, powdered them behind, some suckers, and they just go with the flow and, oh, well, let's not say anything because we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
Yeah, but really they're hurting a lot more than feelings. They're hurting this country. They're hurting the stature of this country. They're hurting our kids, our grandkids. They have absolutely destroyed America, the greatest place in the world to live.
People have got their heads stuck in the sand and they can't see it.
You're being kind.
Stand up and stop being politically correct and actually talk about how they feel and what is the best for this nation.
You know, and
Trump will do that, and he doesn't spare words doing it.
I agree with you, and on this program, you will never, ever accuse me of trying to be politically correct. I couldn't care less. God bless you for your call.
That's why we love you, Zeb.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Have a great day.
Yeah, political correctness is killing this nation. It's killing our attitude. And like this lady that just called in, she's so right. Participation trophies. Oh, my. Johnny participated. Let's give him a trophy. Good heavens. You know, James Harrison for the Pittsburgh Steelers was spot on right. When he said no, he made his kids give back those participation trophies. They didn't earn it, they didn't show excellence, and he made them give them back. And that's what's happening in this country. Same analogy. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb.
Well, I figured you'd call.
Well, a couple subjects about the illegal and anchor babies. I've heard that 14th Amendment of people just, saying it one way and another way and, trying to define it. And I think personally, if you come in illegal and have a baby, that baby is not covered under the 14th Amendment.
Well, and there are lawyers and there are historians much, much smarter on this than I am that studied the Constitution and everything that happened with our forefathers and why and how certain things were written as amendments that know far better than I. But you know something? It just doesn't make sense, Doug, that all of a sudden families, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of them say, oh, well, now here we go. We'll sneak in. We'll go into Bakersfield, California. We'll go into Del Rio, Texas, and we'll have the birthing of our child, and then we got them. We can stay here. This is ludicrous.
It is. It's like, just as a comparison, you take somebody that goes out and, say, steals a car. Okay, that's illegal. And he gets caught, so they say he doesn't have to go to jail, but yet we're going to pay all your medical, and we'll give you some money for a trade. You can go to school, be a trade, and we'll cover food stamps for you. You know, it's like rewarding somebody that breaks the law instead of punishing them.
Well, exactly. And it's almost exactly the same as the analogy of the lady that called in a moment ago, participation trophies. We're going to give you this just for you playing. Well, aren't we giving the people that come here illegally just basically a handout?
Exactly. And you take that participation trophy, if you was to take a census across the United States, my guess, and I'm not a smart man, I've gone to school of hard knocks. In fact, I still haven't graduated. But you take probably 80%, we'll say that's a bunch of malarkey. There's a minority that is pushing for that.
Yeah. Doug, I tell you what, this country, it needs a great big shakeup. It needs to be woken up to the point where they realize what is happening, what we're going to lose, and we'll never get it back again. But with the millennials and the lack of education in our school system, the lack of teaching appreciation for this, the greatest country in the world, with the Constitution and the values and everything, you tell me how we're going to get it back.
The only way we're going to get it back, Zeb, is to educate. That's the way we'll get it back. The way we're losing it is to dumb down.
I agree. Doug, I got to run, buddy. Thanks so much.
God bless.
Caller number 2, your patience for just about 60 seconds. I'll be right with you. I've got to get the weather in, brought to everybody by Mad River Laser. Oh, my goodness sakes. They can put your name and logo, your business information on everything. Caps, shirts, jackets, T-shirts, sweatshirts, you name it. Do a fantastic job with business cards. Oh, my goodness. I am satisfied. These are wonderful people that can help you with the promotion of your business. Mad River Laser, 502 East Street in Rupert. And right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Here's a look at your weather as we do move through the week. Looks like mostly sunny skies, but we do have that air quality advisory still in effect due to all of the smoke in the area and pretty much statewide. So if you have some upper respiratory issues, please take note of that. Otherwise, looking at a high of 94 for today, tonight low of 62. Tomorrow, clouds are going to be rolling in, bringing along with it rain showers and possible thunderstorms, about a 60% chance. High of 84 with an overnight low of 54. Winds are going to be picking up a little bit tomorrow as well. For Thursday, things calming down. Sun's going to be shining again. High of 87 with an overnight low of 58. And as we move on into the weekend, looks like partly to mostly sunny skies. Highs are going to remain in the mid-80s. That's your weather forecast for Zeb at the Range.
I agree. Thank you, Gina. Brought to everybody this hour by Mad River Laser, 502 East Street in Rupert. Absolutely the best. Caller, thank you for your patience. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Zeb, I, for the most part, support Donald Trump's immigration policy. I do not want him for president.
Okay, now explain how one way and how not the other.
Because even though I agree with his immigration policy up to a point, I don't agree with all of it, but I'm not going to agree with all of anything anybody says. I just don't feel like he is a statesman enough. For one, I don't mind his John Wayne attitude, but he is just obnoxiously rude and acts like a ball baby about some things. When a grown man goes out and makes unnecessary, ignorant remarks about somebody that they don't agree with, I don't want him representing me.
Okay.
I want him to be a statesman. I want him to be able to disagree with somebody without just pulling out the third grade temper tantrum, I'm going to throw a fit and call you bad names thing. I'd send my kids to the corner for some of the things he does. So even though he's very intelligent, and I agree with most of what he says, I don't want him representing me.
Okay, now I am not about to try to change your attitude on this. It was a survey, and I appreciate your honesty and your openness on this. But now let me ask you this. Looking at the other members of the herd of GOP possible nominees, which one has got the backbone and the guts to stand up and possibly carry the cross for immigration reform? Which one?
None of them. None of them. And that's the sad part. But I tell you what, if Donald Trump gets on the ticket, I will work my butt off to get him elected. But I won't work to get him on the ticket. I don't know who to put on the ticket. But at this point, he needs to rein himself in. We have one humongous narcissist in the White House already. We have another one on the Democratic side that's trying to get herself in there. We don't need a narcissist in there. And that's the way he behaves sometimes. And I just feel like he needs to either learn to bridle his temper. And in way, I don't even mind if he has a temper, as long as he uses it correctly. But calling women names that, okay, they're politically incorrect, but they're politically incorrect. They're just rude and obnoxious. And I can tell you that if your son had called any woman one of those names when he was a teenager, you'd have knocked him upside the head.
No, I agree with you. I can't argue with the thing you said. I think he's very brazen, and he's very arrogant, and he's very consuming of the issue, if you will. But I will say this. He has opened up a field of thought that needed to be brought up a long time ago, but it's showing that the rest of the GOP does not have a backbone to stand up for the same issues.
I agree with you 100%, and for that I could just bow down and kiss his feet.
All right.
He's making points that should have been made a long time ago, and he's forcing people to take a side and to take a stance. And for that, I'd kiss him myself. But I just before he became president, I would want for him to have a little attitude adjustment.
I thank you for your call. You're a very nice lady. I appreciate your viewpoint. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
How are we doing this morning?
Absolutely great. Go ahead.
Hey, during your break, you need to get on the computer, because I saw this morning. There are cities, like back in Michigan, that on 9/11, they're having like a great big feast or something to celebrate the end of Ramadan or Shamadan or whatever in the heck they celebrate. And you're paying for it. That's taxpayers' money, too.
Oh, isn't that wonderful? You made my day. I feel so good to know that my money is being spent for that venture. I mean, I'm just absolutely going to dance across the lawn at the 9 o'clock break.
Yeah, they've got a deal they got a deal where there's a $500 gift. They're having a coloring contest for the children, okay? And the winner gets $500.
Uh-huh.
Isn't that great?
Well, quickly answer my initial question on the survey. Are you going along with Trump's immigration policies, or do you think someone like Jeb Bush, with a kind of a milquetoast attitude, is going to be better?
You know what? I'm going for Trump, but unfortunately, I hope he sticks to his guns, but unfortunately, we're finding out a lot of politicians talk a good talk until they get into office, and then everything changes. There's not any question about that. Thank you, sir. God bless you for your call. I'll look that information up. Thank you very much. Okay. All right, sir. You know, so far, it is 11-0, and I really appreciate some of the answers that were qualifications on what they thought about Trump and what they thought about his policies and everything. But listening to Jeb Bush last night, and I don't know why the media is just milking the Jeb Bush situation for all it's worth. Oh, we got to have Jeb Bush. We got to have Jeb. I don't want Jeb Bush even close to the White House. I don't want Jeb Bush to be anywhere near where if he wants to buy a ticket on a tour, that's great. I do not want that man as president.
I do not like his milquetoast attitude. I do not like his laid-back attitude. I do not like anything that he says. I do not like his stand on Common Core. I can't be any more blunt than that. I don't like Jeb Bush. And I think there are others, limited as they are, that could jump in and be another candidate against Donald Trump. But right now, and I agree with that lady, that Trump does have a lot of rough edges. Lots of rough edges. But he has brought things to the forefront that need to be talked about, need to be decided, and need to be acted on. Illegal immigration is one of them. I'll take another call in just a minute. Give me a jingle, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Hey, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, the best. Now, that's not bragging. That's a fact. The best. All 7 locations. With the best in tires. Absolutely. The best in brake service. Absolutely. With professionally trained technicians, they know brakes. Getting a lot of tire wear. Maybe it's pulling left, pulling right. Maybe you need a front end alignment. The best. Shocks and struts. Batteries. They've got it all for you, including the very best of service. They just come at a high lope out to the car. How are you? What can we do for you? Really great service. With Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, John on Pole Line in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland in Burley. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. The best. Coming up next hour, interesting. Frosty Woldridge at 9:06. We're going to be talking to him about this immigration plan. And then at 9:30, a gentleman by the name of Rob Nikolewski, and he's from watchdog.org, and he's got a case that he's going to talk to us about to where the left, the liberals, the environmentalists are using kids, little kids, to file lawsuits against the government in favor of global warming and carbon taxes. They're using kids. It's disgusting. We'll have more in just a little bit. Zeb at the Ranch on a Tuesday. We're going to go to CBS. I'll be back in 6. Oh, my. Welcome back. Hour number 2 on a Tuesday. Zeb at the Ranch. I'm Zeb Bell with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you. And, of course, our great advertisers, some of which are Valleywide Home and Ranch, 910 South Oneida in Rupert. Everything for the farm, the home, and the ranch at Valleywide. And then also Western Waste. Here they are.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're all at the Georgia struggle. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this great land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at Georgia struggle. Western Waste Services.
You know, along with taking care of your garbage, Western Waste Services always at your disposal, locally owned and operated, and they also have the Go Minis, those portable storage units. You better check those out today. I need a storage unit for all the stuff here in this office. You can have one from them and also get the best in garbage removal on their route service once a week. I'll tell you, they're the best. Always at your disposal. Number to call, 734-6969. Western Waste Services, and we're very proud to have them on this program. Hey, Ted's Diesel Electric is moving to 635 21st Street in Heyburn on El Fresco Road. Owned by Doug Martin. He called us first hour. Good to have you on the program, Doug. He can rebuild starters, alternators, generators, and also sells brand new. Ted's Diesel Electric moving to 635 21st Street in Heyburn. Oh, by the way, too, we're very, very fortunate to have on our program. Hanson Mortuary, Joel Heward. My goodness, his family, his staff at 710 6th Street in Rupert, really there when you need them. And they can travel to some of the rural towns and churches, too, to help you with the arrangements when there's the passing of a loved one. And like I always say, always serving you with the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity. They know that every life is worth remembering, so please let them help. Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert, 436-5636. Well, it is Tuesday, and with that in mind, it means we have my old buddy from Colorado on the program. Good morning, Frosty Woldridge. How are you?
Well, good morning, Zeb, and good morning to each listener. It's always a pleasure, and I always look forward to Tuesday mornings for us, the chance to chat. And I think the biggest thing is to educate, inspire, and activate every citizen toward a better future for not only our country but for our children. So this really, for me, is a hallowed time because we're doing God's work. We're doing the country's work. We're doing the patriotism's work. We're doing the same work as Susan B. Anthony. Certainly, we're doing the same work as Thomas Jefferson and James Madison and John Adams. And that was their time, and this is ours. I'm excited to share this time with you and make a difference in the world, and certainly in the United States of America.
You know, Frosty, it's becoming more apparent, and I know that you're well-versed in this subject, it's becoming more apparent every day that all of the media, every network, is out to get Donald Trump. I don't know if they've all got together and said, well, you talk about this, we'll get him on this, we'll sick after him on this. But I know with his immigration reform package, I know that the points of interest that he's brought up, I know that when he said he is in favor of deportation of illegal aliens, Jeb Bush and the rest of them are coming out and gleefully dancing across the lawn, running him down, and basically I thought Jeb Bush was nothing more than capitulation to Mexico. What are your thoughts about what's going on?
Well, first of all, I follow this with an articulation of understanding of what's below the surface. In other words, the riptide that's really coming on to this country. You know, you can't see a riptide, but as a scuba diver, I know if you get caught in one, it'll rip you right out to the sea and leave you floundering either under the water or on top of the water or drowned. And Jeb Bush is, I think, a non-entity. He doesn't want the presidency. He's going through the paces. He doesn't have the energy for it. And he's totally out of touch with the American public because he has married a Mexican woman. He has leanings toward complete open borders. In fact, no, he advocates open borders. He advocates against the sovereign United States of America. That's a fact. You can't get away from that. He would do no differently than his brother. His brother, George W. Bush, literally said, I'll see you at the signing table. But in fact, all of the 1.5 million members at capsweb.org and certainly numbersusa.org said, no, you won't see anything at the signing table. And in 2007, we beat back George W. Bush. And so that was the signal for all of America that we don't want unlimited immigration and we don't want amnesty. And so this man, Jeb Bush, is out of touch with reality, and he's certainly out of touch with the American people. I don't see him making it very much further. He's getting buried by the excitement and the straight talking of Donald Trump.
The media, even though they hate the GOP and they hate conservatives and they hate Republicans, they have seemed to want to taint and paint Jeb Bush as the front runner that's going to take over when Trump trips and falls. And what about it? I mean, Trump has got a lot of rough edges. You and I can both agree on that. But he brought these points of interest up that needed to be discussed a long time ago. He has put the plate on the table and said, okay, everybody, this is what we're going to talk about. And the others are Johnny-come-latelys as far as I'm concerned. I know he's got rough edges. I know a lot of people think he's arrogant and brash, which he is. But you know something? We have got to restore the laws in this country and respect our Constitution. And quite frankly, his immigration plan, I think, does that.
It truly does. You know, I think every person listening gets a sense of my integrity. Frosty Wooldridge, a man of integrity, who's really bringing the truth, the facts, the understandings out each week on the Zeb Bell Show. And you can feel my patriotism. You can feel my sense of duty to my country. You can feel my sense of understanding of what we face. But I can tell you this, I am brash myself. I have rough edges. I certainly have a sense of confidence. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to take a man who is confident. I didn't get to stand on the South Pole or the Arctic Ocean or the equator or ride a bicycle across the entire continent of Australia at 120 degrees every day without a sense of confidence that I was going to make it, that I'm going to make a difference in my life. I haven't frozen my butt off in South, at the South Pole in Antarctica, or cooked it in the deserts of South America and the Atacama Desert, without a sense of brashness and without a sense of confidence and without a sense of purpose and mission. And the fact is, Donald Trump has that same guts and gumption and grit, and he's all American. So if you're on the fence about his rough edges, well, I don't care about rough edges. You know, Teddy Roosevelt had rough edges, but one of the great presidents of this country. If you look at Lincoln, just rough edges all over the place. One of the greatest presidents of our country. He saved our country. And right now, we're in the same kind of consequences that those men faced. And I'm going to take Trump because he's red, white, and blue. He's going to make America great again. He's not a politician. He is a success as a human being. And rough edges and all. Give me Donald Trump. Give me an American. Give me a sovereign country. Give me a man who's going to stand for the Constitution and enforce our immigration laws. And in fact, I love the part where he's going to create a moratorium, and he also needs to absolutely stop Muslim immigration into this country. We do not need more Muslims in this country to separate us into a tribal nation, which is in my latest part 10, Post-American Culture, Becoming a Separated Tribal Nation. It's on newswithviews.com. Check it out. You will just cringe at what's happening to our country.
All right, now, let's just assume for a moment, my dear friend, that Donald Trump does get the nod for the Republican nomination. And on the other side, God help us all, Hillary gets the nod for the Democrats. It has been stated by every news source. It has been shown, supposedly, in every poll. Oh, boy, the Democrats and Hillary would welcome Donald Trump because she, according to them, will walk all over Donald Trump and beat him in a landslide. This woman won't answer any questions. This woman is very clandestine and very arrogant about her past and all of her illegalities. Trump is laying all of his cards on the table. You would think the American public could see through the absolutely false front building that represents Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Zeb, Hillary Rodham Clinton is now facing her own Watergate. And finally, after all of the years, and if anybody's gone to my Facebook page, I mean, she was fired way back in the 70s or early 80s, and the head counselor on the commission there said that she was a liar, that she was dishonest, and she was literally undercutting the Constitution of the United States. I mean, she was way back then a liar, and certainly doing everything she could to undermine our laws and the Constitution. And right now, this whole email flap and all that goes with it, if you understand what she really did with the emails, she took it upon herself to have a private server, and there's a lot of damning evidence on there about her duplicity. I mean, and let's face it, I don't know if anybody knows this, but of all the first ladies, she's known as the bitch of all first ladies when it comes to the Secret Service, because she's vulgar,
yes,
because she cursed, she treated the Secret Service with disdain. She still does. I mean, she is just like a holier-than-thou kind of person. But the fact is, she's also dishonest. And the American people are tired of the Clintons anyway, because both of them are a fraud. I mean, they have a fraud marriage. They have committed incredible acts that have been really undermined morality and ethics in this country. And they certainly, can you imagine Hillary Clinton standing up there for morality, ethics, and a marriage?
Yeah, really.
I laughed my head off. So in the end, I think she's going to be tossed out because of her own Watergate created by herself in these emails that were off of the scale and private emails and her server. So I don't think she's particularly going to be the candidate on the Democratic side.
Let me kind of shift gears, but not really, away from immigration. I wanted you to respond to something I saw this morning, and it just made my jaw drop. Ron Colburn, one of the administrative leaders of the Border Patrol, had the nerve, had the audacity, and quite frankly had the guts to say that our border is not more secure. The Obama administration is lying, and he said that they're looking the other way because they're told to by the Obama administration. In other words, the Border Patrol can't do their job because higher up, back to the White House, they're saying, look the other way. And he said the Obama administration is undermining the Border Patrol efforts. What would you respond to and say to that, Frosty?
That is exactly correct. The average right now is between 500 and 700,000 illegal aliens still crossing our borders. The Border Patrol underhanded and completely undermined by Barack Hussein Obama. I mean, that's a fact. And he's only simply spelling out the facts. And again, there is no internal enforcement of our immigration laws. And in fact, because this president only has 17 more months left in office, about 520 some odd days, I'm counting on that guy. As long as he's in, he's going to keep importing more Muslims to really prop up the seeding of America with Muslims. And he's going to create more, literally, terrorists in our country with all of these new Syrian Muslims, about 100,000 of them. And for those of you who don't know that, we're bringing in 100,000 legal Muslim immigrants every year right now. By the time this next year passes, 2016, probably around 200,000 with these refugees from the UN. It could even be more. I can tell you this, as a Muslim, Barack Obama is seeding our country with more Muslims because that's their staffing of other countries. It's called Hajiria. You keep seeding more Muslims until they get greater and greater numbers, and then they undermine the host country totally, and then they create a caliphate. And that is how Islam has been working throughout Canada right now, certainly all of Europe, and even into Australia. Make no kids about it. A Muslim can lie, profoundly lie as much as they want to further the spread of Islam, and that is in the Quran. And Barack Hussein Obama is following that Quran quite well, don't you think?
You know, I want to go back, and I agree with everything you said this morning, but I want to go back and talk again a little bit in the time remaining. We got about 6 minutes left about Trump's immigration reform plan, and it's just common sense. I mean, he wants to triple the number of ICE officers and let them do their job. He wants a nationwide E-Verify. Absolutely. He wants mandatory return of all criminal aliens back to their country. He wants detention, not catch and release. He wants to defund. Here's the one that absolutely I want you to amplify. He wants to defund sanctuary cities. Sanctuary cities, Frosty, in my opinion, are the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life, and it's destroying our civil obedience and our laws in this country.
That's exactly correct, Zeb. Sanctuary cities are in violation of our laws that we passed as citizens of America and in the Constitution. And for these renegade, lawless city councils in all of these cities across this country, and I mean, there's over 70 or 80 of them right now, these illegal aliens get to maintain themselves in these cities. They don't get turned in. They don't get caught. They don't get arrested. They don't get deported, because somebody, highfalutin or otherwise, decided that the law doesn't apply to their city. And these are Americans that are wrong-minded, certainly in violation of the Constitution and in violation of their own sworn testimony on the Holy Bible to uphold the Constitution in their city and in their bylaws.
That's right.
And the fact is, sanctuary cities are in violation of federal law and state law and all other laws. And to continue with them is going to get more and more Chattanooga, Tennessee's, more and more Boston Marathons, more and more of what's happening in Minneapolis, St. Paul right now, more and more of what's happening in California. And if anybody understands what's happening in California, it's going to become America's first failed state. Why? It simply can't function with all the lawlessness. And somewhere at this point, they think between 4 and 5 million illegal aliens operating in California. And they don't pay taxes, and they're sucking all of the welfare down, and they simply are a virus. They are a bacteria. They are non-producing and non-contributing to the good of California.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, that's happening all over the country with these sanctuary cities, and all of us are going to pay a price. So I stand with Donald Trump. You need a man who's going to enforce the laws of the land to make this country great again. So, again, as I've said in the past, Donald Trump, brash, edges, everything else, he's got my vote because he's a man of America, and he is literally standing up for the American people.
We've got a caller with a quick question. I've only got a couple of minutes left, caller. Make it short. Please go ahead.
Yes, this call will be for Frosty. Frosty, would you think of taking off on a trip from your home to Washington, D.C. without any money in your pocket?
Okay, is that...
not. You have to have money in your pockets. You have to have your credit card, your transportation, your plans, your housing, your food, and so forth. You need to be prepared.
Okay, these people coming across the border, should they have to have a certain amount of money, depending on where they're going, so that they don't have to be totally dependent on the United States? Even though they are illegal, once again, the United States, we treat them like they're just one of us.
All right, well, I'll have, thanks for your call, Keith. I appreciate it. I'm going to have Frosty quickly respond to that. Go ahead. Coming across and basically making the assumption we're going to take care of them.
Across the border are costing you and me, our taxpayer dollars, $346 billion a year across 15 federal agencies, where we're feeding them, we're housing them, we're medicating them and taking care of them and their children. And again, the figures are between 350,000 and 400,000 women come across the borders, 8 months pregnant, 8.5 months pregnant, and they birth their baby on American soil, and you and I pay for that. That is into the billions and billions and billions of dollars. And Trump's going to stop anchor babies. You better believe he's going to stop anchor babies. And the biggest thing that is so exciting about this race right now is that we have one American ready to stand up for America and ask and literally give answers to the hard questions that all of these career politicians have done nothing in the last 30 years. Nothing. I don't care if it's the first Bush, the second Bush, the Clinton, and certainly Obama have done nothing to further the American way of life or the Constitution and the rule of law. They've simply completely ignored it, and now that's why we're in the mess we're in. We needed Harry Truman to get rid of all of the illegal aliens. We needed Dwight D. Eisenhower, and now we've got Donald Trump, and that's why Donald Trump has got my full confidence that he is going to stand up for America. That's why we need to stand behind him, because he is going to stand up for America.
All right. Frosty, God bless you, man. I wished I had more time. I always look forward to Tuesdays. Thank you so much. In Golden, Colorado, my dear friend Frosty Woolridge. See you next week, buddy.
Thank you, Zeb. Godspeed, my friend.
All right. Take care. Always enjoy the straight from the hip and very open and honest conversation with Frosty Woolridge from Colorado. Thank you very much. Hey, we start the program off every morning at 8:06 with Cheney Flooring and Home Design. They sponsor the weather. And, of course, they've got everything, whatever you need to make your house a home. Home decor items, kitchen construction, carpet and flooring, the best of newly refurbished furniture, all of this and more at 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Look for the blue door. Cheney Flooring and Home Design. Oh, by the way, I know where you guys should be going to get your clothes for back to school and everything else. You know, the Mayfair Sellers Men's Shop has everything you need to go back to school in style. All this month of August, take 25 to 50% off T-shirts, jeans, shorts, hoodies, wallets, backpacks. Oh, yeah. And great brand names, too. DC, Quicksilver, Lucky Brand. All of this at a store that's been owned and operated locally for over 50 years in downtown Burley. The Mayfair Seller Men's Shop. You stop in and see them today. Oh, my goodness sakes, we got another guest coming up in just a few moments. Very interesting conversation I'm looking forward to momentarily with a gentleman by the name of Rob Nikolewski, and I think you'll find it very interesting. Don't go away. By the way, don't forget, too, Let's Ride, Highway 24 between Rupert and Burley. They've got all the ATVs, all the four-wheelers, and all the different sizes, all the different colors, all the accessories. And if you already have ATVs and you need a little service work done, they have got a fantastic service department. They know where to go for fun is right there at Let's Ride. And they know if you need something repaired, it's right there at Let's Ride. Where the fun is sold, Let's Ride, Highway 24 between Rupert and Hayburn. You stop over and see them today. You know, and while you're over there in that neck of the woods, you want to also make a call probably a little bit beforehand at Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Make an appointment with these folks at 436-4424. Why? Well, I'll tell you why. Because if you have questions about your life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits, they can and will help. They're very dedicated and responsive to your needs. So get a hold of them today. Make an appointment. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. The number, 436-4424. We're going to get on the phone line right now, and I believe he's ready to go with watchdog.org. I'm going to say the name, and if he wants to correct me, I hope he does. I'm going to say good morning to Rob Nikolewski. How close was I, Rob?
Pretty close. Rob Nikolewski. The W is silent, but I can't blame anyone for mispronouncing it because there's a W right there in the middle of the name, and so you would think you would pronounce it, but you don't.
All right, sir. Well, I appreciate that. Thanks for the correction. Rob, what in the world is going on with the liberal left and the lawsuits using little children? I was aghast when I saw this. Give us kind of an overview as to what's going on here.
Well, I'm based here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I first this story first came on my radar screen because a few months ago there was a 16-year-old here in New Mexico who tried to file a petition, or did file a petition, trying to get the state to do more environmentally to combat climate change. And that was kind of unusual. That was a 16-year-old got involved in this. She lost her case, but that's how it got on my radar screen. Then I saw how a 13-year-old in Washington State was involved in a legal dispute in a lawsuit. So I started digging into this and found out that there are a number of environmental groups that are using children, some as young as 8 years old, as plaintiffs in their lawsuits, trying to get the federal government, state governments, local governments to combat climate change. And one of the groups that's really the spearhead of this is a group based out of Eugene, Oregon, called Our Children's Trust. And I talked to the woman there who's the executive director there, Julia Olson, and she told me about why they're having so many children act as plaintiffs.
I am absolutely shocked. Now, first of all, let me ask a couple of naive questions. Are these children and or their parents together? Are they being offered any kind of monetary remuneration? Are they being offered anything for standing up and using their faces and their pictures and supposedly their themes and slogans that they're putting on their pictures? What's being compensated to these people?
Well, I talked to Julia Olson from Our Children's Trust, and she denied that these children are being recruited. She denies that they're being paid at all. But there is a connection with some of the adults, though. Just recently, A recent lawsuit from our Children's Trust had 21 children involved in as plaintiffs, and one of them is the granddaughter of James Hansen. He's a former director of the NASA Goddard Institute for Space Studies, and he's a very outspoken environmental advocate. And he's the grandfather of one of these kids that's involved, and he even wrote a 32-page legal declaration in favor of that lawsuit that they filed against the federal government.
Let me ask you this, Rob. Again, another naive question. How do they being the liberal left, how are they finding these kids? How are they finding someone like these youngsters, whether it's a 10-year-old in Eugene, Oregon, or a 12-year-old in Rayne, Louisiana? How do they go about finding and soliciting to get them to make a response?
They insist, that our Children's Trust insists that the children go out and reach out to them. We'll have to take their word for that on that. But I think the larger question is the appropriateness of this, because it seems to be, and I talked to Jim Steele, he's an ecologist and someone who spent 25 years as the director of the San Francisco State here Nevada Field Campus. That's considered one of California's leading environmental education centers. He doesn't like this. He thinks that this is pulling on heartstrings and trying to appeal to emotion rather than logic.
Well, I can't argue that at all. As a matter of fact, I had that on my program sheet here this morning. That's one of the points I wanted to make. I think it's, I'll say it simply put, I think it's a below-the-belt punch against the rest of the American society. I personally am not a believer in climate change. I'm not a believer in global warming. I've had way too many scientists, way too many professors from many colleges and universities all across the United States on this program that dispute the liberal left and their saying that we're all going to burn up to death with climate change. And then to use kids like this, I find it nothing more than violin music in the background and playing on the heartstrings of America. I think it is, like I said, a punch below the belt.
Yeah, well, I think that politicians especially, as well as elected officials and even judges, it's hard for them as a political reality to say no to kids. And in the story on watchdog.org, I've got a picture from the Facebook page of our Donors Trust, and they have the Democratic governor of the state of Washington, Jay Inslee, smiling with two of the young plaintiffs in a case in Washington state, and Governor Inslee there basically capitulated to what those kids were arguing about, and said that, okay, I'm going to do everything in my power through executive action in the state of Washington to get more done about climate change. So far, the record on these for these children plaintiffs has been a little bit spotty, but in Washington, they were able to get the State Department of Ecology to agree with what the kids said, and so they think that this might be the hole in the dam that burst the entire reservoir. And our Children's Trust is going to file a whole bunch more lawsuits in other states, including Pennsylvania, Florida, Hawaii, New York, Arizona, Alaska, and Montana.
I still question, Rob, and you'd have a better answer on this than I would, I still question the legality of whether they can take minors like this and use them for a political cause, because they're not of legal age yet. They can't sign off on the rights and wrongs of whether they agree with this or not. Are their parents signing off for them? I mean, where's the legality or illegality on this?
Well, apparently, you can file a lawsuit under just about any kind of circumstances, and as long as the lawsuit is properly filed according to state and federal guidelines, I don't know if there's much that can be done about this. But I brought this up in the article. I think the next logical question is going to be, okay, if you're going to get environmental groups that are going to use children in lawsuits, well, the turnabout can be fair play. You could then get children whose parents work in the energy industry, especially in energy-rich states like West Virginia and places like that, and wouldn't they just turn around and file their own lawsuits saying, hey, a lot of these environmental regulations, especially the recent ones passed by the Obama administration, they're threatening my mommy and daddy's jobs in coal mines, oil and gas industry, etc. And I think I don't think it takes a great leap of faith to think that that's what's going to end up happening. You're just going to have a slew of lawsuits on both sides. And if you've got an argument about climate change, about doing something to protect the environment, fine. But I think that a more logical thing to do is to argue that case with adults rather than trying to pull on the heartstrings.
You know, I'm really concerned about this with the kids, and I'm looking at it down the road, Rob, along with possibly using them on climate change and trying to sell the left's viewpoint on that. They could also use these kids for other venues like animal rights activism, etc. There is a never-ending use of these kids or abuse of these kids in the future. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think that, it opens the door for a lot of things. Before I was covering energy issues for Watchdog.org, I covered politics here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and across New Mexico. And when I was in legislative hearings, every once in a while, it didn't happen very often, but every once in a while you would see people, sometimes from the right as well as the left, and they would bring their kids up to testify in front of the legislative committee. And I always felt uncomfortable about that, because you should argue a case for or against based on that sort of thing, rather than it's hard to tell an 8-year-old child who wants to do more of what's the environment, or wants to do more, but put up a park or something like that. And I think it just smacks me a little bit of exploitation when you bring kids into the case, because it makes legislators squirm on both sides of the aisle.
Absolutely. Our children's trust. I guess if I haven't asked you this already, I apologize. Who started it, and basically who funded it?
It got started by Julia Olson, and I talked to her about her organization, and she says that what got her going was she was pregnant with one of her children, and she was already very much involved in the environmental movement. And she said that when she was pregnant with her first kid, Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth came out, and that spurred her into action. I did a cursory look at their funding, and it seems like it's coming from legitimate sources, including the Rockefeller Foundation, but certainly it's coming from sources that are left of center. But I didn't see anything quite, sinister or anything like that. But there were, groups that, like the Rockefeller Foundation, which are certainly left of center.
This is kind of a speculative type question, Rob, but for these kids, is it basically their 15 minutes of fame, or do you really think this is all bogus?
Well, I think some of the kids certainly seem to be very sincere in their beliefs, but as as Jim Steele mentioned to me, he says that he thinks that these things go a little bit overboard. He says that kids don't have the experiential background to really argue this in any kind of way. He said, quote, to push them out as some sort of real experts on this issue, or as if they should be listened to carefully, is political drama more than anything else.
It would really be interesting to get about 4 or 5 of these kids up on a podium, up on a stage someplace, and ask them in an unrehearsed situation what their viewpoints are on the various issues of climate change, etc., without having everything pre-programmed, and I think this thing would fall on its face. Would you agree with me?
Well, that's an unknowable right now, but I'm sure that, if the kids are well thought out, versed in this, they can probably make very similar arguments to the average lay person out there. But at 8 years old, 13 years old, they're certainly not scientists. It's certainly legal. There's nothing that's stopping them. But I think it's just, I think it's and the main thrust of my article was just to bring this up and say, and leave it up to the reader to decide whether or not it's appropriate.
Well, I think the verbiage that was the best in the whole article was using kids as plaintiffs, and the heavy emphasis on the word using. Rob Nikolewski, thank you so much for being on the program with Watchdog.org, and I'll look forward to possibly having you back in the future. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Zeb.
All right, sir. Thank you much. What do you folks think about this out in the audience? Using, and again, I'll emphasize that word, using kids, some as young as 8, to further the cause of the liberal left in the environmental issues, etc., with their smiling little bright-eyed faces, etc. I think it's absolutely insane. I think it's wrong, and I think it's almost illegal. What are your thoughts? Give me a call. 436-2244. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Morning, Zeb. This child plaintiff thing really bothers me, and you know, there's a lot of different angles that you can come at it with morals and rights, but as a parent, how can you not see that throwing your child into that adult world, you're still in there part of their childhood?
I agree with that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. And I think that on these pictures, of course, you can't see it where you are through the telephone, but on these little pictures, they've got the pictures of the kids, they've got their name, they've got their town that they live in, they've got their age, and then they have their statement about climate change, etc. And, you know, I would be afraid as a parent to have my child's picture posted all over the internet with the location, the age, and everything else, because, you know, there's bad people out there on both sides of the coin, and I think they're exposing their kids to possible danger, and I think this is stupid and senseless.
Well, and that's another big issue that I have with it is you know, why using your children, that's going pretty low to get a point across. They're not a tool. They're a young life that's developing, and I just think they're doing wrong by the kids to throw them in the mix of what us adults and the mess that we're dealing with.
Yeah, and you're not going to convince me, anybody in the audience is not going to convince me that an 8-year-old, and I've got the statement and everything right here, is going to come out with a blatant statement of downplaying all of us that believe that climate change is not real. I don't believe it. I never have. And you're not going to tell me an 8-year-old wrote this and devised that statement and is going to sit there smiling at the camera saying that's all his thoughts and his words. I'm not buying it.
No, he's coached, and you know, he sat back and listened, and this is a very sick, deviated, thought-out process that these parents have put him in the middle of.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. God bless you, man. Thanks much for your call. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, the using of these kids, and some of their statements are very, very professional, and I'm not buying into this. You know, one of them is 8 years old, one is 10 years old, and I'm going to see, the print on the copy here is really bad. I'm going to try to read this one here if I can. Pull it up just a little bit. As a teen, I can tell you this is our future we're talking about. We have to stop going about our lives as if nothing is happening. Climate change is real. Yeah. That from a very young child, I doubt it. I think it's all fictitious, it's all phony, and it's a lie. We got to have the weather forecast, and the weather this hour is brought to you by Duck Uglies, 163 West Highway 30 in Burley. And boy, oh boy, family food, great meals. You're going to love this place. I suggest you go out there tonight, today, anytime this week. You betcha. 163 West Highway 30 in Burley. And along with great meals, great entertainment. I'm telling you, they got the old picker and grinner there, Ned Carter, and they've got Kylie and Emily, and they've got on Wednesday nights Tyler Buchanan. They have got some really great talent with all kinds of very entertaining songs. You're going to love the music and the food at Duck Uglies, 163 West Highway 30 in Burley. And right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Here's a look at your weather as we do move through the week. Looks like mostly sunny skies, but we do have that air quality advisory still in effect due to all of the smoke in the area and pretty much statewide. So if you have some upper respiratory issues, please take note of that. Otherwise, looking at a high of 94 for today. Tonight, low of 62. Tomorrow, clouds are going to be rolling in, bringing along with it rain showers and possible thunderstorms. About a 60% chance. High of 84 with an overnight low of 54. Winds are going to be picking up a little bit tomorrow as well. For Thursday, things calming down. Sun's going to be shining again. High of 87 with an overnight low of 58. And as we move on into the weekend, looks like partly to mostly sunny skies. Highs are going to remain in the mid-80s. That's your weather forecast for Zeb at the Ranch.
Thank you, Gina, and brought to you this hour by Duck Uglies, 163 West Highway 30 in Burley. Great food and great entertainment. Would you, as a parent, let your child and someone photograph your child's likeness, put it on a national internet campaign, and state how old they were, where they lived, and everything? Would you put your child under that scrutiny? I just can't imagine. I wouldn't do that for anything, especially in this day and age. And these kids are saying that they're battling against fossil fuels. Environmental organizations need to have more power. These are little 8, 9, 10, 13, 14-year-old kids. I'm not buying this. It's just another very sinister ploy from the liberal left. Would you allow your child to be involved in that? Give me a call at 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. The left will not avoid stooping to new lows, and they're proving that. Give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Did you hear what Hillary wants to do now? Now, we are seeing some devastating changes going on with the stock market and everything. Well, the queen of the NRBs... Oh, by the way, if you're not familiar with my statement about NRBs, those are the not real brights. She is the queen of the NRBs. Hillary Clinton said she wants more taxation, if she's president, more taxation on people who buy and sell stocks. Now, think about that for a minute. And she said millions are working the market for their own personal gain. Well, why else would you be involved in the stock market, sweetie? She wants a 40% higher tax on these folks. It's nothing more than just taking money from these and giving money to those. She is the queen of stupid. And I just cannot imagine how anybody with her politics, her background, her wants and wishes to be president could ever achieve the seat in the Oval Office. But imagine saying something so stupid that she wants more taxes on people who buy and sell stocks because millions work the market for their own personal gain. Would you please tell me why you're involved in the stock market? For a little bit of personal gain on your investment, right? And she wants to take any profit away from you with a 40% higher tax. What are your thoughts? 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Give me a call. Guess what? The tradition of great horses continues at the Zollinger Quarter Horse Ranch 27th Annual Production Sale. It's going to be September 12th this year at 1994 South, 100 East up in Oakley. Sale time is going to be 11 a.m. Preview prior to the sale. Jerry Zollinger and the family, I'm telling you, they've got the best of horses. Featuring stallions, Mr. Silver Pistol, Double All Boone, Dynamo Dunnett, Money's Illusion, Pecos Little Peppy, JX Leo Sunup. We're talking about horses that can be used, horses that can be run up in the rocks, horses that can be used for calf rope and team rope and barrel racing, using horses. For more information, contact Jerry Zollinger at 862-3402 or 670-3833. ZollingerQuarterHorseRanch.com. The tradition of great horses continues on September 12th. Okay? Jerry, thank you very much. Good old boy right there, Jerry Zollinger. All right, calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Last week, at the end of the week, we had that story about James Harrison and how he told his kids to give back the participation awards. And he didn't want his children to have any kind of a trophy unless they earned it for being the best and beating the best and being winners. And I agree with him, absolutely. And it was really interesting to me, especially in a very liberal newspaper like the USA Today. They had many, many responses to what James Harrison did and how he thought about participation trophies. And most all of them were in agreement with us, the conservatives with family values, that said, no, these trophies mean nothing. And I was really shocked to see that most people agreed with us. One person wrote in from Cave Creek, Arizona, and said, I'm not a big fan of James Harrison, but he is right about pretend trophies. In competition, some people win and some people lose. That's why we compete in sports. It teaches all of us the meaning of effort, teamwork, intelligence, and physical attributes. Not successful? Work harder. Still not successful? Try something else. Success in something is out there for those who are willing to make the sacrifices to achieve it. That letter sums it up. There are winners and losers in everything in life. And if you're a continual loser, find something else, but keep trying and try to excel. But this idiocy of participation trophies and not keeping score and all this politically incorrect garbage is bringing America down. And I thank all the people that wrote in and many of the people that called into this program. Thank you very much. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Give me a call and let me know what your thoughts are. Oh, give Johnny a ribbon. Why? Well, because he was here. Oh, give Susie a ribbon. Why? Well, because she participated. That is lunacy. Lessons in life are not like that. All right, you tell me what you want to talk about. Give me a jingle, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587, and we'll talk about it. A gentleman called in last hour, and thank you to my lovely wife, and she found this on the internet. And the gentleman that called in was referring to Mayors Verge Bernero and Nathan Triplett and in Michigan. And they are welcoming, here's the headline on this poster, they are welcoming you to the 9th annual Mayor's Ramadan Unity Dinner. And guess what date they're going to have this to celebrate Muslims and celebrate Sharia law? 9/11, September 11th this year. I was absolutely floored when I saw this. The Democratic mayors of 2 Michigan cities plan to celebrate September 11th this year by honoring Sharia law and hosting their 9th annual Ramadan Unity Dinner on 9/11. Can you imagine how hurtful? Can you imagine how it dishonors exactly what happened on 9/11? And these mayors in Michigan are doing all they can to throw salt in the wound. Absolutely ridiculous. I'm going to talk more about this tomorrow morning and get your feelings on this. Also, I want to remind you that coming up in just a very few moments, we're going to have Dr. History. And filling in today will be the great voice of Gary Shoresman. He always does a great job. And then be prepared at 10:32 this morning. We are going to have one of the very first interviews with the new Idaho State Senator that took over for Dean Cameron. That will be, of course, Kelly Anthon, and he's going to be on the program at 10:32. And if you have questions for him and how he's going to try to fit in the senator's chair and what he's planning on doing, what he wants to accomplish, biggest challenges, any question you want to ask him, he'll be on the air for about 27 minutes, that last half hour of the program. New Idaho Senator Kelly Anthon. Okay? That's going to wrap it up for this second hour, actually, and we're going to head to the news from CBS in just a moment. Old Wheels is going to trip the trigger over there and play some music. We'll be back in 6 minutes with Dr. History. Don't go away. Oh my, here we go. Hour number 3. Yeah, the old smoke's still in the air outside. Be careful out there, folks. Welcome back to Zebeth Ranch. And, of course, I'm Zeb Bell with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you. And, of course, some of our great advertisers right here on the program, Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service today. Call 734-6969. And our friends at Valley Wide Home and Ranch, 910 South Oneida in Rupert. Everything for the farm, the home, and the ranch at Valley Wide. Hey, by the way, in case you didn't know it, Ted's Diesel and Electric is moving to 635 21st Street in Heyburn, right there on Alfresco Road, owned by Doug Martin. And he can rebuild starters, alternators, generators, everything from lawnmowers all the way to big locomotives. And he sells brand new, too. Ted's Diesel and Electric moving to 635 21st Street in Heyburn. Oh, my goodness, what's going on at the Chadwick today? I love this. The Chadwick Sports Grill, 139 West Main in Burley, with a special today, sweet and sour pork. I love that, over white rice with veggies and super salad. You're going to love that special. You're going to love the menu choices. You're really going to like the really nice people over there at the Chadwick Sports Grill, 139 West Main in Burley, with today's special, sweet and sour pork over white rice. You stop in to the Chadwick. Right now it's time for Dr. History, and Dr. History is brought to you by Minnecash Sales at 1321 East Main Street in Burley, with old Zach and the rest of the crew right across from the airport. The number to call, 878-2091. Minnecash Sales, serving you. Well, we've got a guest with us on the program this morning, a guest host, and we say good morning to very informative Gary Shoresman. How are you, Gary?
Good morning, and thank you. Excellent.
Well, now, you were here a couple of weeks ago on Dr. History, and I got to tell you that we brought up a lot of interesting facts about out there by Malta and that area and the settling of that area, the ranching. I had a lot of calls. People said, man alive, I didn't know I was related to those people. What are we going to talk about today?
Well, I'd kind of like to do a little recap and kind of get into that same area, but bring up some new things. And I'd like to go back to 1863 when Idaho was a territory. Mm-hmm. And at that time, all of southern Idaho, all the way over to Pocatello area, was all Owyhee County to the Oregon border.
I didn't know that.
And west of that, or east of that, all the way up to the West Yellowstone was Yellowstone County, taking over all the way over into half of Wyoming.
Holy cow.
The Oglala County took up the whole western half, or eastern half of Wyoming. Anyway, it was then in 1879 that Cassia County is cut out of Owyhee County. And then out of that county, then Twin Falls comes later. Mm-hmm. But up until 1895, for a brief couple of years in there, it was Logan County out of Alturas County. Then it became Lincoln County was cut out of that.
Let me ask you a question, Gary, quickly. I don't want to take away from the show, but what was the motivating force later times to change, dissect, and make smaller the counties?
Well, Minidoka is a good county is a good example because after when the reclamation project came out, Lincoln County was created 1895, so barely 10 years later, the reclamation project, irrigation project, has taken hold. So then you have towns like Heyburn and Rupert and Nesequa who have to go to Shoshone for the county seat.
Oh, my.
So you had to hop on a train, go to Minidoka, go to Shoshone, and then go get your records and do all of this kind of thing. And that was one of the reasons why when Rupert was first incorporated as a town, they were incorporated not until 1906, although they were filled up in 1905. And it wasn't until all the businesses around that square with their little shacks and got a petition together, went to Haley and petitioned to have the town brought together as an incorporation that they would then have first rights to keep their piece of their lot around the square.
I'll be.
So, it was a long ways away to do all your business. And then, of course, later on in 1914, Rupert becomes the county seat.
How did they discern the landmarks and the outlying perimeters of every county? How did they discern what was in, what was out?
That I don't know exactly, but I do know that the big political thing is that 3 counties can run cheaper than 1. So when they broke away from Lincoln, they brought in Blaine and Minidoka and Gooding County.
I see.
And then later on, Jerome County comes in 1919. They piece all of that off. So as the population increased, the need to stay closer and have your own within your own boundaries. But exactly who it was who cut out the boundary, I'm not sure. That one I haven't found.
Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Stumped me.
Sorry for that.
Stumped me. Anyway, I'm just real fascinated with how this country came to being. Cassia County is 1879. Now, we know that the Oregon Trail came through, and it had to cross Raft River. And Raft River comes all the way, begins way out down into Utah and around behind those hills and comes all the way toward the river. Then Cassia Creek comes out of what's today known as Connor Creek, where you come either to Malta or go to the City of Rocks out of Albion. And those were to be reckoned with waterways in 1870s. And prior to that, the wagon trains, they had to build rafts to get across that Raft River. There was that much water coming through.
Really?
Now, interestingly enough, today you are very hard-pressed to find pieces of that old river left because it has dried up and barely runs. It does not run to the river anymore.
Was there a reason for the drying up of the river? Was there an allocation of water someplace else? Or?
More and more people came in and used the water, and those who had their rights, I suppose, did block some of the water a little bit and use it for their own purposes, but there's really a lack of rainfall and snowfall in the mountains to keep those rivers running. Otherwise, they couldn't have held them back. If we have a 500-year flood, that river will open up again no matter who's in its way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting to see it today because the original homesteaders who came in the early 1870s would never recognize it. Of course, today, now we have deep wells and sprinklers, and it's a beautiful, verdant, green valley.
But at one time, it was a really flowing river.
Yes, and it was a huge marshland all the way around, and even over, it went around... it became a marshland all in Raft River, ending out into the river. Then in Albion, that Marsh Creek ran down behind the 2 mountains and came out like by Declo and into Springdale, and where the Downard Bridge is today, that was all marshland at one time, and it was great grazing because it just, water went and it flooded wherever it wanted to go, and when people moved in there, they blocked off the water so they could build a house and it wouldn't get them wet and this and that and whatever. So they had an irrigation problem, so to speak.
With all the ranchers that came into this area, I mean, many of which you said left the Civil War and came out here and settled in this area, especially out there at Malta, Raft River area. Where did they go? Where did they trail their cattle to get a market for their cattle?
Originally, from that area, they had to go to Kelton, Utah, and Kelton is where the nearest railroad was, and that was also where the stagecoach came up through over to Rock Creek, and then ended up into crossing the river and going on up into Haley.
But did they have like buyers at Kelton that would, when they brought the herds in, buy right there? I see.
Also, they would go to see, the railroad came in 1881, but prior to that, in the 1860s, we had cattle and sheep coming from Oregon, and they'd work their way across, and this come into Idaho, and then they worked their way into into Wyoming, and then wherever there was a railhead, they would ship their cattle east from there. So they drove their cattle long, long distances. It's kind of like we hear about bringing cattle up from Texas into Kansas to the railroad. Well, it happened here. The Sweetsers, the Pierce family early on brought in up to, they say 10 to 20,000 head of cattle from California and Nevada up into this beautiful valley.
So this really was a livestock mecca at one time.
Very much like Lovelock. They say Lovelock, when you got to Lovelock and with the Oregon Trail or whatever you were, or California Trail, here is the Humboldt Sink, but it's also one of the richest valleys areas in the country. Grows beautiful alfalfa, had fabulous alkali soil for that. Also had great deal of pasture. So people on their wagons sometimes will hold over for a week or two to get some meat back on their cattle, because then that 90-mile trip into Sparks, Nevada on the Oregon Trail was nothing but Death Valley.
Now, where is Kelton, Utah? Refresh my memory
Right
and everybody
south.
else's.
You could just go straight out of follow the road straight south from, say, Malta, Raft River area, and it's just across the border. But it's a little bit where Stanrod is and Lynn, it's just down in that area, but a little bit further south.
But it used to be, in days past, a very bustling area.
It was it.
Yeah.
It sure was. It was a stage stop. It was the last spot for the railroad where it ended. And then when the railroad was completed in 1881-82 at Minidoka going to Shoshone, known as the Oregon Short Line, then it was 100 miles closer to Albion than Kelton was.
Really?
So that was one of the big deals about it's such a great area, that the Albion Normal School was chosen to be in that spot.
Really?
So people from around the country or the state got off at Minidoka, took a stage, crossed the Snake River, and came on into Albion on stage. And they were much, much closer than going from Kelton. But things grew pretty fast down there, and those old settlers, you were talking earlier about, I guess the political thing came up in my mind, talking about Trump and talking about Teddy Roosevelt being edgy and having it rough on the edges and this and that. These guys were all rough on the edges. There was no namby-pamby. They were up with they had to deal with the Indians. Chief Pocatello was down and had a relationship with many of those people, and Charlie Park was one of those guys, Ira Park in the 1870s. And so there was... They had to depend on each other,
right?
But they were also very, very independent. And they took the wife and they took the kids, and they says, "We're going," and they did.
You know, Gary, it's so interesting as to what happened and what transgressed back in those days. But you know, one of the questions I had, and pardon my interruption, and then I got to do a quick commercial. Like, they drove their cattle to a railhead at Kelton, Utah, and you said that's where they loaded and shipped back east.
Many of them.
Well, you know, think about it. There were no banks. There were no checking accounts, probably, and a lot of it was on script, or they had to carry cash. How did they do their banking and their transactions back then?
Well, there would have been a bank there, and there would have been a telegraph, you know. So when they got there and sold their cattle, they would find their buyers or knew who their buyers were, and then ship them off, and then, of course, be handed off either to Chicago or elsewhere or Salt Lake or wherever the cattle were going. But many times in those cars, drovers were sent with the cows to go further, or the cattle to go further on, to make sure they really got to the market where they were going to go.
Oh, really?
And they'd pack their horses along with them. And then when they were delivered totally, so that was just a railhead. That may not have been the total destination. It could have been Chicago or San Francisco. But many of those old cowboys rode along with them, took their horses, and when it was over with, rode back or came back and started over again.
It sounds to me like in the old days, with what you're talking about with the monetary transactions and everything, it would have been a heyday for shysters that wanted to come in and really kind of steal some cattle through the paperwork, right?
Well, there were many shysters working in that group, because if you did your job, they didn't care what your past was. If you were honest and was straightforward and did an honest day's job, because there were plenty of those guys that came along that were separate from the cattle rustlers.
Yeah.
But many of those times, the cattle rustlers were some of the good guys. You know, it did really depend. And one of the stories that I heard happened up in Muldoon was, now, if you have 5,000 head of cows, you've got to have a lot of people there representing your own cows, and of course they're branded, and then you have to keep circling and separating, and each guy then gets his own cows, and then pretty soon you have a whole bunch of separated cattle.
That's right.
And then when you get down to the very end, then it's like everybody's got his own thing is fine, except for they were down to this last bunch and actually had them in the corrals, and I think it was up what they call the Huff corrals up by Cary. Anyway, it's right at the edge of the lavas. But this guy sees a calf sucking on this other guy, on this cow, and they have different brands. And so he went and got his gun. He was sure that somebody had set that up and was going to steal his cows, and he used lots of adjectives on them. And said
none of which we'll use right now,
not
right?
Today,
okay.
No. But anyway, they knew the words and was serious, because that was, you stealing my calf, you might as well steal my wife.
Yeah.
Maybe. Anyway, someone called and said, wait a minute, hold it, we can settle this. So they turned everybody loose. All the cows turned them loose. And guess what? The little calf finds his own mother, and the mother finds him, and then nobody had to get shot.
Oh, things were a little tough for a while.
Well, yeah, they had a code of ethics, these guys, but if you crossed it, and it was all with the look and body language. Now, you guys got along fine, and in Western cowboy humor, there's always a lot of truth that comes out of real serious situations.
Right. You know, let me take a break here and do a commercial, and we've got about 8 minutes left, and I want to come back and answer this question for me. What created the demise of some of the more flowering areas that were really growing and prospering? What caused their demise to have they lose their popularity and move elsewhere? I would like you to answer that. Don't forget Minnecasia Sales, 1321 East Main Street in Burley, with Zach and the rest of the crew. All your lumber, all your shingles, all your windows with the Western windows, saving on your heating and cooling bills. Absolutely, they've got everything. What an inventory to serve you at Minnecasia Sales. Along with the Tartar Farm and Ranch gates and panels, the very, very best. Old Zach and the crew can help you. Stop in and let them prove it to you at Minnecasia Sales, 1321 East Main Street in Burley, right across from the airport, bringing you Dr. History. What caused the demise of some areas that were really growing and prospering, and then all of a sudden they dried up and blew away?
Well, a lot of times as things went on, kids left for better places in America, living the American dream. Other places like Idaho, who actually got started by I.B. Perrine in Twin Falls, came down and wanted to get the little town of Idaho north of Malta started. They got a railroad built through Declo, and Burley was going to be the big hub and the turnaround, and was then going to go straight on down to Kelton, on into Salt Lake City. So now, when you met anybody who has driven through Raft River knows it's a huge, huge country. And in that area, there was a lot of, all the way over to American Falls, was dry farm wheat fields. And the story goes that at one time there were hundreds of wagons waiting to be unloaded, or had to go to Declo, or had to go elsewhere, or Utah, to get rid of their grain. Now, if you're going 100 miles, or 35, or 40, or 50, whatever it was, hauling one load after another to get those things to market, even to American Falls, that was why it was like a really good idea to have Idaho there. And they had a huge turnaround. The train went down in big, huge barns where the train could be turned and headed back. One thing they hadn't reckoned with, they got in the argument with the government over that as part of the Minidoka irrigation project, and they wanted to be paid for that land that they were on. And they wouldn't do it.
Wow.
And so the government shut them down, and that was basically the end of Idaho.
Really?
And a lot of other people. Now, people had bought homes in a little place like that. There was a little town called Conant.
Yeah.
There was other little places that all people had bought homes and opened up businesses and whatever, and gas stations and post office. And then if you don't have a place to sell your grain, then you're a goner.
So way back then, the government messed things up.
Well, it started off right off the bat. By 1915, Idaho was pretty much gone.
Really?
It started in 1911. Now, before we go, I'd like to switch horses here for just a second, because do you know how Mount Harrison and Lake Cleveland got their names?
I have no idea.
I just ran into a great piece, a little poem. It was 1888. And what brought this whole thing up was the presidential election year of between Grover Cleveland and Benjamin Harrison. And so the story goes, now, I absolutely have all the respect in the world for the Mormon people as well as I do the Gentiles, but this is kind of a cute story. Albion had a Methodist church in 1886. The surrounding areas were mainly and had been settled by Mormon settlers early on. So whether there's truth to this or not, it was whether if the LDS or Mormon people got to the top of the mountain first, they could name the mountain and the lake. If the Gentiles got there first, they could name the mountain and the lake. So I got a little poem here written by Mrs. Susan Bennett, and she wrote this on the trip up to the lake. And there was Hardy Sears. Hardy Sears is the one who later on would go on and buy the hotel and stage route at Minidoka to Albion. And there was Eb Morris, Frank Riblet, he was one of the first school teachers there, Bill Holmes, and Mr. and Mrs. Dave Bennett, and she's the one who writes this. Now, Cicely Howell, who was from the Howell family that Howell Canyon's named for, and Dan Stark was a sheriff at the time, and also a man by the name of Joe Brim.
Okay, we got 2 minutes.
Okay. She says, we started at 5 o'clock in the morning, a trip to the mountains to take, and our destination was supposed to be at the lake. For joy and for mirth, I am sure we did not lack, but the funniest all was my husband riding a jack, meaning a mule. We were riding along the side of a hill, sure enjoying the trip. The jack fell down, the rider got up, not hurt, but in his overalls he had a big rip. All but he were mounted on horseback. Enjoying the trip, you see, hurrying for the camp decided on, for we were as hungry as could be. We started without any breakfast, but had plenty with us to eat. Arriving at camp, we made coffee, and the way we did justice to good things, I tell you, could not be beat. Well, when we started on again with the sweet scent of the pines and the pure morning breeze, and grand and beautiful was the sight of the brooklet, mountains and trees, to ride as slow as we did was hardly to mind. But you couldn't very well ride off and leave your husband behind. We jogged along up the canyon and got to the summit at last. We made it by 10 in the morning. If we didn't ride so fast, and down a ravine we rode in the shade of the trees a quarter of a mile or more, for we were to have our pictures taken somewhere down by the lake shore. The mountains and lakes were to be named that day, and we found another party had come up the other way. So we were first. Some wanted Mount Harrison and some Mount Cleveland to win. So it caused amongst the party quite a stir up and din. So they put it to a vote to see which they could take, and got Harrison for the mountain and Cleveland for the lake.
There you go.
Now the story goes that had the Mormons won, it would be Mount Moroni and Lake Nephi. And I've heard that, and I say that with all due respect.
I did not know that story. Gary, it's such a treat to have you standing in for Dr. History. Great, great job. And I understand you're going to be here next week, too.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. Ladies and gentlemen, my dear friend Gary Shoresman, and he is Dr. History for today. Brought to you by Minicasia Sales, 1321 East Main Street in Burley, right across from the airport. You stop in and see Zach and the rest of the crew today. Also, real quick, before we go to the hard break at the bottom of the hour, I want to remind you on Thursdays we have Cassia County School Days, brought to you by two wonderful people and businesses. A Child's World at 1308 Overland in Burley. Everything for the new arrivals, all the baby material, clothing, etc. Also for the ladies, hundreds of new fall arrivals in your clothing, and all the books for the kids right there at A Child's World, 1308 Overland in Burley. And don't forget, get life-saving colonoscopies at the Ambulatory Surgery Center at 1344 Highland Avenue in Burley. Call, save money on your surgery, 677-8888. Ambulatory Surgery Center and A Child's World, bringing you on Thursdays, school days in Cassia County. We're going to take a little break, be right back with the new Senator, Kelly Anthon. Don't go away.
And now back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244. or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Thank you very much. Welcome back. Hey, don't forget, for the best in guns, for all the firearms from Browning, Beretta, Weatherby, Ruger, Bernelli, Smith & Wesson, Winchester, you name it, all the firearms, all the ammo, all the accessories. Red's Trading Post, 203 5th Avenue South in Twin Falls with my buddy Ryan Horsley. We're going to get him on the air and be talking about guns in the next couple of days. Don't forget, since 1936, in historic Old Town Twin Falls, great customer service at Red's Trading Post, 203 5th Avenue South in Twin Falls. You stop in and see them today. Right now, let's go to the phone line, and a little change in what we were going to do this morning, but he's on the line, and I'd like to say a great big welcome to the Zeb at the Ranch program, and this is the first time we introduce him as the new Idaho Senator, Kelly Anthon. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Well, thanks, Zeb. I sure do appreciate you having some flexibility. I wanted to come out, as you know, to visit with you at your studio, but telephone had to do today. And Zeb, I got to tell you, I've always loved your show, but I just love the Dr. History segment.
Well, I learn a lot every time.
It's great. I love the local history. As a matter of fact, I've got to tell you also, so I'm here in my home office today, and I've been listening to your program on a 1930s Philco floor console radio.
For some reason,
it's something I inherited from my family who settled in Almo.
Oh, my goodness.
And it showed, I had a great-grandfather who was all about technology and progress, and he bought this radio for his family, well, in the 1930s. It goes to show a couple things. Number one, how progressive those folks were. But number two, how a good American-made radio can last for so long, because it works just like a charm.
Amen. Kelly, let me ask you this to start things off. Introducing yourself now as an Idaho Senator and being appointed by the governor to take over the seat for Dean Cameron, what does it feel like all of a sudden waking up in the morning, looking in the mirror and saying, holy buckets, I'm now a senator? Certainly that must have occurred to you.
You know, Zeb, it has, and I don't try to take myself too seriously. I really look at it more as from the obligation, the responsibility standpoint. That's what occupies my mind, is how I'm going to do a good job, how I've got to step up and represent the people of Minidoka and Cassia County in a way that's befitting to them and the position I've been given. So, yeah, I don't think too much on, I'm a senator, as much as I've got a job to do and I need to do it right.
Let me ask you this, Kelly, and you know me, I'm fairly blunt, and sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad, but I'm going to be very, very blunt about this. In my position here as a talk show host, and I've seen it much more than I want to over the last 10 years, the politicians' attitude towards the constituents, once they attain office, they seem to forget really who voted for them, why they voted for them, and they do things their own way. What are you going to do? What do you want to accomplish, and how are you going to treat your constituency?
Well, you know, Zeb, there are several reasons why I got involved in this in the first place, and one of the reasons was my belief that really we have to be careful to make sure that all our constituencies are represented, and what I mean by that in Mini-Cassia area is somebody that really understands both the Minidoka and the Cassia County sides. And you know, the truth is, I was raised in Mini-Cassia area. I've done business here. I practiced law here. And you always hear about this deep river between Minidoka and Cassia County that keeps us separated. And I was concerned about that. My experience personally has been different. I've actually seen that under the right conditions, there's a real benefit to be had by acting as one and getting together. And so I felt like one of the things I could offer based on the past I had, where I've been the Burley City Attorney and the Rupert City Attorney, I've represented a lot of the farmers and the dairies throughout the area, and just the fact, when you boil it right down, I'm a Decro farm kid, and I married a Rupert girl. I have deep roots on both sides of the river. And so I think that's a key point when you ask about constituency and representing them, is we've got to have somebody as we move forward, and I think we have a good delegation now that will represent everybody. So I think that's part of it. But I think also, to your point, Zeb, there really does seem to be a disconnect when people get complacent about their constituency.
Right.
And I think we see that especially on the federal level. And, they get ensconced in their position. They get the money behind them. They get the special interest behind them, and they seem not to care as much about the voter. I can't agree with you more about that concern. And all I can say is, you've got to wake up every day, be humble, and remember who sent you there, and remember what your job is.
Let's ask this question then, Kelly. You're going into this as a freshman, basically, and the next legislative session, you're going to have a whole bunch of issues thrown in your lap. What do you think right now is the biggest issue of concern for you and what you want to try to achieve while you're a senator?
Zeb, I think the issue, and there are many, but one of the primary issues that we have to continue to stay focused on is our water situation. And the fact of the matter is, and I'm happy to say it, that agriculture is the life and soul of our economy. And I have a background of economic development, so I've been very keen on understanding what does it take to keep our local communities in the Mini-Cassia area vibrant and growing. And when I say vibrant and growing, and why are we trying to keep the economy moving? To me, it boils down to some simple principles. The first is to build the Idaho family. I mean, to build a family. When my children grow up, I want them to be able, if they choose, to be able to stay here, get married, find a really good job, and raise my grandchildren. I mean, that's when you boil it right down, that's the approach. But when you look at our water situation and the fact that historically we really have over-appropriated based on false data in our groundwater. And so now we've got a problem. And that problem manifested itself last year in a number of water calls and some ongoing water calls. So just to give you a flavor for this, in the most recent water calls, if those water calls had been completed, there would have been 157,000 acres of our irrigable farmland put out. It would have affected about 200 cattle operations. And in Idaho, in southern Idaho, we've got about 100,000 dairy cattle that rely on our groundwater. So you just can't ignore the significance of dealing with the water problem that we have in the state of Idaho. And I think Speaker Bedke has been a great advocate in this matter. I've been working, I'm actually appointed to a committee in Boise with the Idaho Association of Cities, and we're working on some of these issues with the groundwater users and with the other appropriators. But I think we're making great progress. I'm very positive about it, but that is the issue, I think, in the next coming year.
One of the issues that's going to come back again and again this year in the next legislative session is the gay, lesbian, and transgender issue with the add the words. It seems like those groups always want more, and they want to take over more of our society. I was raised where that is an abnormal style of living, and I personally think those people need help. But what are your thoughts about these people making an approach again in the next session, trying to encroach more in our society with the add the words?
You know, Zeb, I've done a lot of thinking about this, and I've realized that the position I take on same-sex marriage, which I've been opposed to it, and continue to be opposed to it, is the reason why I won't be able to agree with these folks who are proponents of it or who favor it is because of my religious beliefs. And the notion that my belief is, and the foundation of marriage is, something that was created by God. So when you take somebody who is irreligious or does not have a faith, you're never going to have a meeting of the minds as to how marriage ought to be. So I think there's a fundamental problem that we're going to have to face, and that is that there are many of us who believe that marriage is a Bible-based, a God-created institution. And there are those who don't.
I agree.
And so that is a formidable challenge to overcome. Now, that having been said, I think that the other part of being a good Christian is I guess, the virtues of kindness, of non-discrimination, and so forth. But so when we talk about add the words, what I've been curious to watch is the way that the Utah legislature has been tackling this recently. And I'm going to continue to watch that. I've also spoken to the governor at length about this. And I think there is certainly a belief, and I think you would believe, Zeb, that, you know, if somebody walks into a hospital and needs medical treatment, they shouldn't be denied just because they say they have same-sex attraction. So there's just a lot of moving parts there, but you've got to understand my position is going to be very firm. I am pro-family, traditional family. I believe in the institution of marriage. I believe that it's a religious-based institution and should not be governed by the state. I don't believe that the state should be telling me what I should believe about religion. And I think when you boil all this right down, the issue we're dealing with is religious freedom.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where all of us are so concerned, because we see that it's not just an effort to get same-sex marriage. It seems as though it's an effort to quiet the rest of us.
All right.
And that is something I cannot stand for.
Absolutely. Appreciate your remarks on that, Kelly. And we have a caller with a question. Caller, quickly, if you would, please.
Yes, Kelly, I don't know you. You're one of the three people that I did know that were in the running was Doug Pickett, and I respected him highly. Sometimes when we have appointments, there's a certain amount, touch of cronyism. Now, I hope that didn't occur, and you sound so far like you're doing a good job and you care, but can you expand on that a little bit and I'll hang out?
You bet. And, you know, I think that is a fair question to ask, is when you see the appointments take place, and, you know, there's a party system, there could be a question of cronyism. The fact is, and if you talk to the Republicans that have been involved, that were involved in that selection process, you'll find that I was the least likely to benefit from cronyism in that process. I have always been a Republican. I've always supported Republicans. However, there were many who were in the running for that position that were much more connected inside of the local and the state Republican Party than I. And so that's the only comment I can make, which is I can guarantee it wasn't cronyism that got me into this position, because I just didn't have that kind of power to wield.
You know, issues that are always coming up every session, Kelly, naturally are going to be the infrastructure, the maintenance and upkeep of the roads, and also education. These are the ones that are always going to be pushed to the forefront every year for increases in funding, but there's only so much money and there's only so much that you can allocate for it. What about education and the stand of Idaho education versus other states? What are your thoughts?
Well, you know, Zeb, I'll say a couple things about this, and I know this rubs people a little bit the wrong way. I went to Declo High School, and when I attended Declo High School, we were overcrowded. There's just no getting around it. I think we were at sometimes three or four to a locker, as an example. I remember my English classes being chock full at 45 students. What I found out after I graduated and moved on to college was that I was competing, and that the education I had received at Declo High School was at least sufficient, if not, in my opinion, superior to some of the other students I was encountering at college. And so I think there are several factors that we have to consider when we're looking at education. Money is certainly one of them. But you cannot discount the effect of a family, for example, on education. A mother and a father who say, get your homework out and get it done. Which my parents did, and which I do to my children. You can't discount the power of a really good teacher. And so, yes, there's a money component, and we need to deal with that. As a matter of fact, also in my visit with the governor, what I told him is I believe we need to get our education spending back up to levels, if we can, while balancing a budget, of course, to pre-recession times. And I also believe that a good teacher is going to require a market salary. If we're going to pay a lot less, you can't blame people for moving to another state for another job. Yes, we do need to address education in comparison to our other states, our sister states, from a financial standpoint. But I think we also, as a community, always have to keep in mind there are other factors besides money. I also believe in local control. We have to keep our curriculums, we have to keep our local boards in control of what we're being taught, what we're teaching our children. And I also believe in standards. So we need to have standards that are measurable and that we can see that, in fact, that we are teaching, for example, math, English skills to a proficiency level that help Idaho students succeed after high school.
Okay. Now we have a caller with another question, and we're only down to about maybe 6 minutes left. So, caller, go ahead quickly, please.
Yes, this question is for the senator. I think that we need to get the flag commandments back into our school to get patriotism back in. I think that is a downfall of our youth today. I would like to see you try to get that proposed through state legislature.
All right.
Thank you,
Kelly, respond to that. I personally also think we need to have more studies about our patriotism and our past in this great country. What are your thoughts?
I'll tell you what, Zeb. To me, it's just completely 100% counterintuitive that we aren't promoting these kinds of things in our schools. I mean, what's the point in not doing it? I know there's going to be some liberal belief system that we have to beat ourselves up for something we did 100 years. I don't know what it is. But the fact of the matter is we should be doing this in school. I absolutely commend groups like the American Legion, who in my education days were into the schools teaching flag etiquette, flag education. They were sponsoring speech and oratory contests on the U.S. Constitution, doing stuff like Gem Boys State. I mean, these groups have been so critical to me in my personal education. I will support every measure I can get going in the Idaho State Legislature to increase the amount of patriotic education in our schools. I can't support it enough.
And let me ask you this, Kelly, and I'm down to the last couple of minutes, but I want to say this. There's a lot of federal issues, a lot of national issues that are going to affect states like Idaho and could curtail and diminish quite a few of the communities, whether it's Oakley, Declo, etc., with a closure or a listing of the sage grouse issue. What do you think the states should do to show more power and more support against the federal government? Is there anything as a senator that you think you can do more of?
Well, I'll tell you what, if there is, I'm going to go after it. I mean, I think that we as Idahoans, for the most part, agree that we have too much involvement in our lives with by the federal government. And if you look at western states in particular have been treated differently than the eastern states because they're older. And when we received statehood, there was just so much reservation of land and resources by the federal government that I think it's stifling. And that's not to mention just what we see, especially with the Obama administration, of this explosion of regulation and control, which, by the way, is not just an attack on personal freedoms, but even if you look at it from an economic development standpoint, it's also quite stifling. It's just not good for us. And so I support any measure that would strengthen our state's sovereignty. Now, there's going to be a lot of different issues, like you said, Zeb, that come up, and so we'll just have to look at those on a case-by-case basis. But as a general rule, I think that the state of Idaho does much better in managing things than the federal government does.
Let me ask you a final thought here. Your career as a lawyer, how is that going to help your career as a senator?
Well, Zeb, here's what I think. I've got to tell you real quick a couple things about my law practice. I haven't been practicing for about 2 years. I'm still licensed. But my practice was helping family farmers who were in financial distress. That's what I did for a living. I did that, and I represented our local cities. So I've prosecuted crime in Burley. I was the city prosecutor. And what my law practice has helped me realize is that you have to be careful when you draw up a law. And you've got to be very careful, and you've got to think about it, because there are unintended consequences sometimes when you're legislating. And so I think that my legal background is actually really helpful when you get to the table to draft up some kind of law, to make sure that it's drafted carefully and will be, have the intended effect. So I think that's where it helps.
And as far as your family is concerned and your job as Rupert City Administrator, what's going to go, what's going to be kept? I know the family is supporting you 100%, but what about all the other aspects of your life? How are you going to juggle everything up in the air to make sure you have time for all of them?
Yes, sir. So I think I was on your radio show about a month ago. I got scolded for not being very clear about this point. And it is that not only does my family support me, but the city of Rupert has been 100% supportive. I couldn't be more grateful for them. What it means for me in Rupert is that I've taken a real haircut on my pay, and we've rearranged some of the administrative functions while I'll be in Boise to make sure that things go perfectly for the citizens of Rupert, don't affect the city's budget, and so forth. My wife's been teasing me because it looks like every career move I make less money. But that's kind of the way it's shaking out. That doesn't matter to me. If I wanted to make more money, I could make more money. That's not the issue. The issue is this is what we felt was the right thing to do. And it's the right thing for the family, and we hope it will be the right thing for the community.
Kelly, God bless you. I am out of time. I'm over time, but I want to say how much I appreciate you coming on the program. The new Idaho Senator, Kelly Anthon. Please don't make yourself a stranger and come back in the future.
Thanks so much. God bless, Zeb.
All right. Thank you, sir. Very well done. Very, very nice individual, and I wish him well. Kelly Anthon, Idaho State Senator. Congratulations. Holy cow, Old Wheels is sitting over at the station saying, Zeb, what about the weather? Well, I'm getting there. Scarrows Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome, 324-7657. Changing the way we eat one bite at a time, and they guarantee everything that they sell. Here now is Gina with the weather, brought to you by Scarrows Meats.
Here's a look at your weather as we do move through the week. Looks like mostly sunny skies, but we do have that air quality advisory still in effect due to all of the smoke in the area and pretty much statewide. So if you have some upper respiratory issues, please take note of that. Otherwise, looking at a high of 94 for today, tonight low of 62. Tomorrow, clouds are going to be rolling in, bringing along with it rain showers and possible thunderstorms, about a 60% chance. High of 84 with an overnight low of 54. Winds are going to be picking up a little bit tomorrow as well. For Thursday, things calming down. Sun's going to be shining again. High of 87 with an overnight low of 58. And as we move on into the weekend, looks like partly to mostly sunny skies. Highs are going to remain in the mid-80s. That's your weather forecast for Zeb at the Ranch.
Oh, Gina, great job. Thank you very much. Scarrows Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome, 324-7657. Yes, they are changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time at Scarrows Meats. Oh, my goodness. Let's take a quick look at tomorrow on the program, Wednesday. First of all, 8:06 to 9 o'clock, we got the open forum. Then at 9:06, we're going to jog back to Indianapolis, Indiana on the phone line and talk to my dear friend Dave Bigo. Then at 9:30, we are expecting a call, underline expecting Mike Crapo, Idaho Senator from Idaho, United States Senator. He's going to be on the air at 9:30 tomorrow morning. I've got a lot of questions to ask him about politics and what's going on. And then at 10:06, we're going to be talking to Nick over at Burley Physical Therapy, and we're going to be talking about when you've got ailments, arthritis, everything else, how to try to get back to being you. And then we're going to have author Coleman Alderson on the program at 10:30 about a great book that he has written regarding energy or the lack of and where America will be in the next 10 or 20 years. Very interesting. By the way, don't forget our friends at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, and service is the key word. They've got many of their top tires on sale right now, like the Open Country HT for your light trucks and pickups, all-season tires, superior handling, absolutely one of the best. And don't forget, if your outfit needs some brakes or working on the brakes, I know the best place to go. Any and all of the Les Schwab Tire Centers, with the best brake value promise in the industry, with professionally trained technicians and, of course, premium quality parts. Front end alignment, shocks and struts, batteries, all this and more with Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, John on Pole Line in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland and Burley, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Holy cow, we're going to saddle the horse again tomorrow morning at 8:06 and ride for 3 hours, 8 to 11, right here on Zeb at the Ranch, K-Bar 1230, and then streaming live on the internet, zebbell.com. Don't miss a minute of it tomorrow. Going to be a great program. But always remember this: the way things were are the way things ought to be. God bless you. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:06.